Stories about Nancy Guthrie went viral this week. Millions of people saw them. Panels debated them. Comment sections lit up with opinions. Both of them were wrong. First, there was that claim that Savannah Guthrie spent $500,000 of her own money on private investigators. It spread like wildfire across the internet. Brian Enton, the News Nation reporter who has followed this case closer than anyone else, went on air and said it plainly. I have now confirmed that is not true. Second, there has been a major shift in how law enforcement is treating this investigation. A former CIA operations officer and FBI special agent used two specific words this week that really changed the picture of where things stand. From rescue to recovery. Today on Notebook VE, we are walking through both of these reversals together with the receipts. We will look at what the sources actually said, what it really means on day 130, and why it all matters so much. No speculation, just verified facts and thoughtful context from the people who know this case best. If you are here because you genuinely care about getting the facts straight on this case, not just chasing the latest headlines, then you are in the right place. This channel is built for people like you, folks who want thoughtful, sourced analysis on stories that touch the heart. If that is you, I would really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and the bell. It helps us keep bringing you these careful updates. It only takes 2 seconds. And thank you so much. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She disappeared from her home in the Catalina Foothills neighborhood of Tucson, Arizona, in the early morning hours of February 1st, 2026. A doorbell camera captured a masked, armed man at her door at 1:47 in the morning. When her family and authorities arrived later that morning, the front door was open. There were clear signs of a violent struggle inside, and there was blood on the entry path. That blood was confirmed to belong to Nancy. Her daughter, Savannah Guthrie, is the co-host of NBC's Today Show, which is how this case went national within hours. Authorities confirmed from the very beginning that this was a targeted kidnapping. Nancy was specifically chosen. This was not random. Today is day 130. No suspect has been named publicly. No arrest has been made. The reward stands at $1.2 million between the family and the FBI. No one has claimed it. Heading into this week, 3 main threads were active. First, DNA from inside Nancy's home has been in analysis at the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia, for months now. The sheriff confirmed the lab is still working. The case has not been declared cold. Second, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos has been cataloging more than 10,000 hours of surveillance footage collected from the area, carefully cross-referencing vehicles by color, make, and model. That way, when a suspect is identified, investigators can search that archive in minutes rather than months. Third, multiple forensic experts, including retired detective John Bueller and death investigator Barbara Butcher, have gone on record with serious concerns about whether Nancy survived the initial kidnapping. The evidence they cited includes the amount of blood at the scene and the complete absence of any credible ransom negotiation in 130 days. That is where things stood going into this week. And then, 2 things happened that really changed the conversation. Several weeks ago, a story started circulating that Savannah Guthrie had spent approximately $500,000 of her personal money hiring private investigators and outside forensic specialists to supplement the official investigation. The figure appeared in multiple outlets, and it was amplified by defense attorney Donna Rotuno, who spoke at a CrimeCon panel. The story went everywhere. It was shared hundreds of thousands of times. It fed a narrative that was already building, that Savannah had lost confidence in the Pima County Sheriff's Department and was essentially running a parallel investigation on her own. It felt credible because it was emotionally coherent, a desperate daughter, a slow-moving investigation. $500,000 does not sound crazy coming from someone with Savannah's income who is trying everything she can to find her mother. But that is not the same thing as being true. On the June 9th episode of Brian Enton Investigates on News Nation, Enton addressed this directly on air. His words, as reported across reliable sources, were clear. There was a report that Savannah Guthrie had hired private investigators, which I was always very skeptical of. And I actually said on my show once before that I just had a hard time believing that because of the sources that I have. I think I would have heard that by now. Then he said, but the report kind of went everywhere. I saw a lot of people talking about it, and I have now confirmed that that is not true. And then, to be completely unambiguous, Savannah Guthrie did not spend $500,000 on private investigators. It is just the Pima County Sheriff's Office and the FBI that are investigating this case right now. There is one nuance here that matters. Enton did not say the Guthrie family has spent zero money on outside resources. He specifically addressed the $500,000 figure and confirmed it is wrong. That is a meaningfully different statement. It is entirely possible the family has spent some money on outside assistance at various points. Families in this kind of heartbreaking situation often do reach out for extra help. What Enton is saying is that the specific claim and the implication of a fully funded parallel investigation is not accurate. This correction matters for three key reasons. First, the people following this case deserve accurate information. When a story spreads that turns out to be wrong, it creates a false foundation that other theories get built on top of. Correcting it is basic housekeeping, but it is so important. Second, it changes how we should interpret Savannah Guthrie's public statements. If she had truly lost faith in law enforcement to the degree the original story implied, we would expect her communications to reflect that. What we actually saw was someone who asked viewers to call in tips to the FBI, showing a level of continued trust that feels meaningful. Third, it matters for the investigators themselves. The narrative of a family that has given up on the official investigation creates friction that does not help the case move forward. Enton clearing that up is genuinely useful for everyone involved. Tracy Walder is a former CIA operations officer and a former FBI special agent. She is currently a News Nation contributor. Her background in intelligence means she understands, at a structural level, how federal investigations allocate resources. The kind of insight that comes only from years working inside those systems. On June 10th, 2026, Walder made a statement that has not gotten nearly enough attention, relative to how significant it is. Walder said, "The investigation is not a rescue investigation. If it is a rescue, then you are going to have more resources thrown at that, because you have a living human that can potentially be recovered. At this point, they look at it as a recovery and investigating a crime. There is not a sense of urgency. There is not a risk to the public." This was specifically targeted toward her. Two words matter more than anything else in that statement: rescue and recovery. In law enforcement and intelligence language, these are not interchangeable. They describe fundamentally different operational postures, the kind of shift that affects everything from staffing to daily priorities. A rescue operation assumes the subject is alive, and that time is the critical variable. Resources are maximized. Personnel work around the clock. Every hour of delay is an hour of potential deterioration, carrying that heavy weight of possibility. A recovery operation assumes the subject is no longer alive, and that the primary goals have shifted to finding the remains, preserving forensic evidence, and building a prosecutable case. The urgency is different. Thoroughness matters more than speed, even though that truth is incredibly difficult to sit with. The Pima County Sheriff's Department responded to this characterization with a statement. The Pima County Sheriff's Department remains fully committed to the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. This is an active and ongoing investigation, and we continue to work closely with our partners at the FBI. That statement does not contradict Walder. It says the investigation is active and ongoing. It does not say it is a rescue operation. Here is what we can say with confidence. A CIA officer and former FBI special agent used the word recovery to describe this investigation on June 10th. That is a fact. The official sheriff's office response did not use the word rescue. That is also a fact. Brian Enton, who has better sourcing on this case than almost any other journalist, has said he believes this case will be solved. What does this add up to? It adds up to an investigation that is real, that is active, that has not been abandoned. But that has also shifted from a posture of emergency response to a posture of systematic investigation. Those two things can be true at the same time, even if it feels heavy to acknowledge. For the Guthrie family, The distinction between rescue and recovery is not an abstract operational question. It is the difference between hoping Nancy comes home and beginning to process the possibility that she already has. That is a weight that no family should have to carry for 130 days. And it is why this case matters beyond the headlines, touching something deep in all of us who follow it. I want to stop here for a second because I genuinely want to know what you are thinking. After 130 days, and these two major corrections this week, has your view on whether Nancy could still be found alive changed? Or do you still hold strong hope? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. I read them. This is a space for respectful discussion. And if you have not subscribed yet, now is a great moment. More updates are coming. On Monday, June 8th, the Pima County Sheriff's Department arrested 3 men near Nancy Guthrie's Catalina Foothills home. The 3 men are Alexander Zabel Jr., 54, who runs the YouTube channel Criminal Network, Troy Lewis Bradshaw, 34, known online as DAA Juice, and Damian Todd Enderla, 46. According to official statements from KOL News 13 and the Pima County Sheriff's Department, the arrests followed numerous complaints about individuals blocking roadways, trespassing, and disrupting the peace in the neighborhood. One of the streamers had allegedly constructed what court documents describe as a makeshift outdoor pee tent on the residential roadway in front of Nancy Guthrie's home. Sheriff Nanos told reporters he had video of one of the men urinating in public behind this structure. Zabel and Bradshaw were booked into the Pima County Adult Detention Complex. Enderla was cited and released at the scene. Both Zabel and Bradshaw were released from custody the following morning. The charges were misdemeanors, obstructing a highway or public thoroughfare, and public nuisance. Sheriff Nanos stated the new policy clearly. If you received a ticket, you will then be arrested. In other words, if someone is just out there and they have not been cited, we will give them a citation and expect them to be reasonable. But if they have already been cited for the same behavior, they have upped the ante. And now, we are going to take them to jail. The Pima County Attorney's Office confirmed full support for the sheriff's crackdown. The easy read here is that 3 guys acted like idiots and they got arrested. Serves them right. But there is something more important happening that deserves attention. The Catalina Foothills neighborhood has been dealing with this since February. Residents who had nothing to do with this case and did not ask for any of this have been living with a rotating cast of content creators outside their homes for 4 months. Hey, cannot walk their dogs without being filmed. They cannot get in and out of their driveways without navigating camera setups. It is exhausting and intrusive in ways that are hard to fully describe. The arrests are the direct result of that failure to self-regulate. And here's the part that connects to the investigation itself. Every hour that law enforcement spends managing disruptive content creators on that street is an hour that is not being spent on the actual investigation. Deputies who are responding to neighbor complaints are not canvassing for tips. Personnel time is finite, and that reality hits hard. There is a version of true crime engagement with this case that helps. Sharing accurate information, calling in tips when you have them, keeping public awareness high in a way that pressures institutions to keep working. That version has real value. And there is a version that actively interferes with the investigation by creating chaos at the crime scene location, consuming law enforcement bandwidth, and traumatizing a neighborhood that is already living through something terrible. The June 8th arrests represent that second version hitting its limit. On June 8th, Fox News Digital and News Nation reported that the Pima County Sheriff's Department had issued a wanted alert for a 40-year-old woman named Coral Michelle Smith. Smith is wanted in connection with a separate kidnapping and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon case that occurred on May 29th near the intersection of River Road and La Chola Boulevard in Tucson. That location is approximately 6 to 7 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home. Smith has a documented criminal history. Court records show a robbery conviction in 2011 and a second robbery conviction in 2020, with a prior kidnapping charge in 2020 that was dismissed. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has explicitly stated there is no known connection between the Smith case and the Nancy Guthrie disappearance. Those are the official words of record. Retired homicide detective Chris McDonough, who serves as director of the Cold Case Foundation, went on News Nation's Jesse Weber Live to add context. His point was straightforward. In any major missing person or abduction-type investigation, detectives cast a wide net. Standard operating procedure means investigators examine any violent offender operating in the surrounding area, regardless of whether an official connection has been established. McDonough said investigators would closely examine Smith as they would any violent offender operating near the area. Not because there is evidence connecting the cases, but because that is what thorough investigators do. Here is the honest read on Coral Michelle Smith. The official position is clear: no connection. The investigators running the Guthrie case have said so explicitly. The profile differences are also significant. The suspect in the Guthrie case has been described as a male between 5'9" and 5'10" of average build. Smith is a female, 5'6". The physical descriptions do not match. For anyone watching this case and wondering whether Smith is the answer, the evidence does not support that. What the evidence supports is a thorough investigation that accounts for all violent activity in the surrounding area. That is what law enforcement is doing. And that is different from saying Smith is connected. And June 10th, Men's Journal published an interview with Brian Entin in which they asked him directly, "Based on everything you know about this investigation, what is the likelihood this case ever gets solved?" His answer was this: "I think 100% that it will be solved. There is an entire task force working around the clock, made up of FBI agents and detectives, and it is their full-time job to work on this investigation. I think the right tip will come in, or the DNA evidence will change all of that. 100%. Not probably. Not, I think there is a good chance. 100%. Brian Entin has not been a cheerleader for the investigation. In previous reporting, he described his sources as not feeling like authorities were getting closer to a solution. He has pushed back on the sheriff's optimistic framing more than once. When Entin says something positive, it is not because he defaults to positivity. He is someone who says what he actually believes. The fact that his honest assessment is 100% this gets solved is meaningful. He did not say 100% Nancy is found alive. He said the case gets solved. Those are different statements. And the distinction is intentional. Entin pointed to two specific mechanisms that he believes will break the case. First, a tip that comes in with the right specific information. He has said repeatedly that he believes someone in Tucson knows something. The math on a targeted kidnapping is that the suspect had prior knowledge of Nancy's address, her routine, and her connection to Savannah. That kind of knowledge does not exist in a vacuum. Someone, somewhere, has a piece of information they may not even realize is relevant. Second, the DNA evidence at Quantico. Entin specifically named the rootless hair sample sent to the FBI lab as potentially significant if analysts can extract a usable profile. The field of investigative genetic genealogy has resolved older and more degraded samples than this one. It requires patience and the right lab, not a miracle. Entin's 100% is not wishful thinking. It is based on his assessment that both of those paths remain open. Day 130, no arrest, no named suspect. DNA active in Quantico. 10,000 hours of footage cataloged. 3 YouTubers arrested at the scene. Coral Smith wanted, but not connected. The $500,000 private investigator story is confirmed false. The investigation has shifted from rescue to recovery terminology, according to a CIA and FBI veteran. Brian Entin says it gets solved. The reward is $1.2 million, and no one has claimed it. Expert views differ. Entin says the case is 100% solvable. Walder says it is in recovery phase, not rescue. Detective Buhler says the blood evidence and the absence of ransom communication make him doubt Nancy survived. McDonough says standard procedure means examining all nearby violent crime. No single expert has access to the full investigation. Each is reading the same public information through the lens of decades of experience. They do not all agree. That is not a bug. That is what serious analysis looks like. This was a hard week for the story of Nancy Guthrie. Not because anything catastrophic happened, but because two things that felt true turned out to be different than reported. And the thing that replaced one of them, the rescue to recovery language, is harder to sit with than the original story was. The $500,000 correction is actually relatively neutral. It does not hurt the investigation. It does not change what we know about Nancy. It just restores accuracy to the conversation. The rescue to recovery shift is different. That one lands. It says something about where 130 days of investigation without an arrest has brought us. Not just procedurally, but emotionally, for everyone watching. Brian Enton says 100%. The DNA lab is still running. The catalog of 10,000 hours of footage is ready and waiting. Someone in Tucson knows something. The weight of this case and the possibility of its resolution have to be held at the same time. That is what Nancy Guthrie's family does every single day. The least the rest of us can do is hold it with them until there is an answer. 30 thoughtful minutes. Thank you for staying with me through the heavy parts. If you have any information about the Nancy Guthrie case, please call. The FBI line for this case is 520-882-7463. You can also report online at tips.fbi.gov. The Pima County Sheriff's Department line